All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going through a series of video presentations for the Rankin Technical College AWD1000 Web Development Technologies course. These videos are on the book that we're using, or one of the two books we're using for the class, that being Murock's JavaScript and jQuery 4th edition. And I'm in the middle of Chapter 2, Getting Started Fast with JavaScript. So we left off, right here. All right, one thing about floating point math is it's not precise. And to give you an example, if you said 74.95 and you multiplied that by 0.1, you'd probably get something like this. Even if you just add 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1 10 times, what you're typically going to find is it's not going to be exactly equal to 1. It'll either be equal to 0.99999 something or 1.00000 something. All right, one way or the other. So again, the results aren't always precise. So we talked a little bit about arithmetic expressions. I showed you the operators, I showed you the order of precedence, and we looked at some compound assignment operators. You can also use the plus equal on strings, but rather than using it to add two values, it allows you to concatenate, all right, two values. And they're going to give you some examples here. All right. So if you said const first name equal Grace, const last name equal Hopper, and then const name equal last name plus comma space first name, you'd get Hopper, comma space Grace as an example. All right. One of the things that we're going to be using virtually all the time in here, you should just get used to it right away, is something that's called template literals. Because when you don't use template literals, you got to use pluses and you got to keep breaking in and out of whatever it is you're working with. Well, with template literals, and you use that using the backticks, which are in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, right underneath the escape key. And it allows you to actually put the variables right inside of your string. And it interpolates or gives you the value of them. You have to start it with a $sign, and then the variable name has got to be within curly braces. So this will also give you Hopper, comma, Grace. All right. They've got concatenating on multiple lines. This is all stuff you learn as you go, okay? And in fact, as they say here with some of the escape sequences that you can use with this, notice we've got \n, which is the one you'll use almost exclusively. That's a new line. It's like you hit the enter key. The other one they don't show here is \t for a tab. You'll use that one quite a bit as well. And they give you some examples. Totally fine. Some of the codes for Unicode characters, notice Unicode is a character set. One of the things that we learned when we had the HTML portion of this class was how to say char set equals UTF-8. That basically said we were using the Unicode character set, which has got well over 100,000 characters that you can use. All right. So we've just talked a little bit about concatenation, or joining two strings together. We looked at concatenation operators, the template literal, string expressions, escape sequences, and a little bit with Unicode characters. All right. So window object. Window is there by default. So in other words, where they show this example here, window.alert, you don't need this part. You can just say alert. You can say window.alert, but what's the saying? It's superfluous. It's redundant almost. You don't need to use it because when you say alert, it's assumed it's window.alert. So here's an example of a prompt. What the prompt does is it allows you to input values. So in this case, user entry would hold whatever you put in there. for this is a test of the prompt method. And notice 100 here would be the default value. All right. One property of the window object, well, what you can do with the window object here is you can use it to look up stuff. And if you go, I don't know what that means, it'll make more sense, again, as we go on. So you can say the name of an object, like the window object, and the name of a property, like the location property. All right. Two of the things that you can use with the window object are parseInt and parseFloat. ParseInt attempts to take whatever string you put in and attempts to convert it into an integer or whole number. ParseFloat takes whatever string you give it as input and it attempts to put it into a floating point number, which means it can have a decimal place. All right. Now, again, I'm not going to read what they say here. I don't exactly agree with it, but let's say that I put 347.6 for a parseInt. It would say 3 is a number, 4 is a number, 7 is a number, point is not a number. So it would return 347. Here, if I put 347.6, it would return all of it. If the first character that I put in is non-numeric, it's either alphabetic or a special character or blank, this will return NaN for not a number. So will this. And here's some examples. And some more examples. You can use the write method to actually, with document, to write right to the web page. And there's some examples right here. Again, this stuff will make a lot more sense once we get in and start really doing it. All right. ToFixed allows you to return something to a certain number of decimal places or no decimal places. To say pi to 3 would be 3.142. Since the next number is 0.5 or above, it'll round up, so that would be 3.142. So here's some stuff we're just introduced to this stuff with objects. All right, so there's a couple of examples. All right, then they've got a couple very simple. This is a very simple miles per gallon program here. And then there's a test app program. Let's, instead of using what they have, in fact, let's do that. Let's take a look at their code. So you run this program, and it'll come up with a prompt that says enter miles driven. And you put in a number like 375. And it says enter gallons used, and you put in a number like 12. After the 375, you click OK. After the 12, you click OK. And it gives you this. So here's the code. Now, a couple things. If for either miles or gallons, if either one of those you do not put in a number, so again, if you leave it blank or you put in letters or a special character, it's going to return NaN, not a number. Capital N, lowercase a, capital N, not a number. But assuming that you do put in a number here, it'll put it in miles. Assuming you put in a number here, it'll put in gallons. We're not checking to make sure that it's positive. All right, so we could put in here -56 and 8, and it would say our miles per gallon was -7. We'll talk about how you do validation later on in here as we continue on. All right, here's another example. So notice we're prompting for a test score. All right, and we're going to actually prompt for 3 different test scores. So in here we entered a 68, then we entered a 92, then we entered an 84. Play calculator. 8 plus 2 is 10 and 4 is 14. Carry the 1. 1 and 6 is 7, and 9 is 16, and 8 is 24. So that's 244. 244 divided by 3 is actually 81.333, but since we're doing integer division, it throws away the decimal place, and it's 81. So here is that code. Notice the use strict at the beginning. All right, and hopefully, at least, hopefully, the stuff that's in here makes at least some sense to you. Again, our use strict at the beginning. Let total equal 0. So that's our variable. That's our total variable. So that's going to be the addition of these three things. Again, if for any of these three, if for score 1 and or score 2 and or score 3, if any of those, we put in something that's either non-numeric or blank, it will set that variable equal to NaN. All right, and notice for the average, because it's important that you see this. First of all, we're doing a parseInt. If we did a parseFloat, it would say 81.333333. But since we said parseInt, it removed the decimal portion. But this has to be in parentheses. We want the total divided by 3. And we want to run the parseInt on the entire thing. And that's it. So we've now gone through the first 2 chapters in here. When I come back in just a couple minutes, we will go into Chapter 3. And Chapter 3, as you can see, is called the Essential JavaScript Statements. And I'll be back with that shortly.